First time.
You're new here, aren't you?
Someday, somewhere, I'll make a difference.
It's a mockery.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
My good Sir Brent, do you have a problem with this episode? Why are you speaking so?
Listen, Jeff, this is going to be a shortish episode. I'm just trying to pad for some time, man. Pad for some time because wowzer. We're going to get into all of that. Jeff and I, folks out there, Jeff and I are watching Babylon 5 for the very first time. We are two veteran Star Trek podcasters. We each have our own individual Star Trek podcast. We came together to watch this show for the first time and apply that Star Trek analytical lens that we have where we overanalyze everything. We're going to apply that here to Babylon 5. And also we're going to try to see how much we like this series. How's Babylon 5 doing it in its own way?
And while this is a Babylon 5 podcast, not a Star Trek one, we are Star Trek podcasters, like Brent just said, so those references are sure to make their way in. But to keep us honest, we play the rule of 3. It's a game where we each get only up to 3 episodes apiece per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This is from Apple Podcasts. Alexander Boehm left this one.
What's up, Alex?
Alexander says, my favorite Star Trek veteran non-Star Trek podcast. Combining
Wait, read that again. What?
This is about as niche as you can get. My favorite Star Trek veteran non-Trek Star Trek podcast.
Okay, got it. Yeah, cool.
Says, combining Babylon 5 and Star Trek is something of a taboo in many fan groups. When it's done, the topic is usually who stole from who, and not much else. Babylon 5 for the first time shows how much we've been missing out on. I'm happy to say there are many Babylon 5 podcasts out there. Old fans returning to Babylon 5, newcomers being introduced to the show, experts talking about the behind the scenes. There's even a group role-playing the old Babylon 5 RPGs. So with all these options, what makes Babylon 5 for the first time unique? The experience and unbridled optimism of 2 Star Trek podcasting veterans. As much fun as it is to see people experience this extraordinary show for the first time, there's always a bit of worry. Will they stick with the show or end it halfway through? Will they pick up on the small details the show puts down? Will they have the patience to let the show develop its own identity, or will they draw their own conclusions too early on? And this is where the Star Trek veterancy shines through. Right from the get-go, Brent and Jeff host the show with the confidence of experienced podcasters. Here are 2 guys who aren't afraid to be critical of the show they're watching, but they're also fans of a huge franchise that has had tons of ups, tons of downs, good episodes and bad ones. And so they know where to find things to praise, what to criticize, and where to be patient with a show that has yet to find its footing. With most of the show still ahead, and hours upon hours of discussion to come, this is a very promising start. There's nothing more to say, but live long and prosper. Because he buzzed himself, which is super cool.
I love it when people buzz themselves. It makes me giggle every time.
It's the best.
Okay, first of all, Babylon 5 RPGs?
Yeah, I did not know this was a thing.
I didn't know about that. Is that a thing? I mean, obviously it is, but
I feel like maybe a Patreon special, like maybe we get a little game going on Discord or something.
Yeah, that is dope.
Yeah, I'm in.
We'll have to ask the Discord folks over on Patreon. Hey, by the way, if you guys want to come chat with Jeff and I, like on a messenger platform, we have a Discord server that you guys can get access to over at our Patreon page, patreon.com/Babylon 5 first, the number 5, the word first.
That's right.
But Babylon, but we'll have to ask because I don't want to spoil anything. Like if there's, it may be one of those things we have to wait until we get through with this.
Oh yeah. Or maybe they base the whole RPG on this episode we're going to talk about today. Hey, on that note, Brent, we have another 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This one's also on Apple Podcasts, and Jason Ardren says, I was a big fan of Babylon 5 back in the day, but haven't watched it in years. Then I discovered this podcast. 2 Trekkies watching Babylon 5 for the first time. Babylon 5 is a series that builds its stories, so you can't rewatch it without seeing parts of the story constantly building. So it's refreshing hearing 2 people watch it for the first time, so they have no knowledge of what's to come. Their discussions are fascinating, fair, and entertaining. Whether you've never watched Babylon 5 before or it's your 47th time watching it, this podcast is the perfect companion.
That's what we try to be. What cracks me up is when people don't get it, you know, and hey, shout out to everybody who's listening, whether you get it or not. But there's just some people who don't get that we're going through for the first time. We don't see all the connections.
Brett, how could you not know that this thing happens in 72 more episodes? How could you not know that?
How could you not understand that that's foreshadowing? You don't appreciate subtlety. Dude, I'm still trying to figure out the layout of the freaking station, and I'm a season and a half in. Like,
I just learned Brown Sector is where the sewage goes. Like, come on, give me a break.
Right? Well, along with our rule of 3, which, by the way, the ones that got buzzed earlier, that's on them. That's not on us. But along with our rule of 3, there's another game that we like to play at the end of the show. I had so much fun with this game last week, where we got to guess what the next week's episode is going to be based on title alone. We don't watch ahead. We don't see, you know, we truly, there's the title. Here's what you think it's going to be. Sometimes it's spot on. Sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with the episode. Jeff, do you remember what you said last week, and how close were you?
Well, we were both pretty close in what we guessed. And so let's just say off the bat, like, oh my gosh, King Arthur came back. We got that. Where I went on a different route than you is I thought we were going to learn that Arthur was actually a Vorlon back in the day. Like, you know, one of those Vorlon interferences in our faith stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was not right about that at all, but totally nailed the King Arthur part. What did you guess?
Yeah, I was very similar. I said King Arthur. I said Excalibur. So I got that. But I said that he would arrive from the Vorlons a la Jack the Ripper from Comes the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it would be like that. But I also said this was going to be a palate cleanser. So this was going to be a comedy, right? This was going to be a good, like, reset us after a bunch of heavy episodes. And the last 2 episodes, which are like, that's what you're using to follow up with. And I said that in doing so, like, King Arthur would somehow be the guy who is the catalyst for the rest of the universe accepting Babylon 5 as its own state. It wasn't King Arthur that had anything to do with that, but I will go ahead and say, based on the treaties and stuff, people are acknowledging Babylon 5 as its own state. I'm satisfied with that requirement being filled. So everything else was wrong.
Yeah, because you thought like Avalon was a Vorlon planet. And it was actually a really cool idea that you had.
But they said it in the show. They even referenced Jack the Ripper with Comes the Inquisitor. Like, hey, it could be that.
Marcus says, I think Brent Allen guessed this is what was going to happen this episode, so I'm going to bring it up.
Jeff,
just because maybe.
I am telling you, you and I, 30 years later, are impacting the writing of this show from 30 years into the past. Time travel, time loops, time is cyclical and spherical, not linear. Anyway, Jeff, for the folks at home who maybe didn't actually watch this episode before listening to this episode, and honestly, I couldn't blame them. Maybe it's been a while since they've seen it, anything like that. Today, fortunately for me and unfortunately for you, the duty falls to remind us what this episode is. While you do that, I'm going to check out for a while because, have fun, man.
Hey, thanks. Well, hey, Babylon 5 opened for business like 2 weeks ago, but nobody seems to care. Sheridan and Ivanova are trying to figure out how to get some more cash flowing through the station and to stop relying on the Minbari for protection. They pull the non-aligned worlds that will agree to meet into the council chambers and propose a new Babylon treaty. It declares Babylon 5 as neutral territory and calls on the League worlds to chip in on station defense. The treaty isn't celebrated, but it does go over better than a wet fart in church. enough signed to ensure protection for the station. The one ship that did pay to dock dropped a dude off that caused quite a commotion when he came on board. Security stopped him after a weapons alert. He said that he had returned because he is needed at this place and at this time. And as much as I was hoping that he was going to be a techno mage, I was almost equally, surprised when he said he was King Arthur. Marcus, though, is eating this up. He's been preparing for this moment his entire life. Dr. Franklin insists on checking him out. He's not going to believe that he's really King Arthur and is going to science his way to the truth because Dr. Franklin is smarter than anyone else and is a master sciencer. In the meantime, Arthur is down below helping old ladies and fighting crime. You know who else is fighting crime down below? G'Kar. They hook up and they kick some serious lurker butt. G'Kar is living his best life. They go to the bar, they get wasted, and sitting at a tiny, dark table, Arthur knights G'Kar, and because of his eyes, christens him the Red Knight. Arthur tells the moving story of his defeat. He and Mordred met to negotiate a treaty. They each brought 14 knights with them, with their armies waiting in the distance prepared for shenanigans. The order was, if anyone draws their sword, charge in and bring hell with you. Well, as luck would have it, a snake, an adder, joins the negotiation. One of Mordred's knights draws their sword to kill the snake, bringing Arthur's army in, and it was pandemonium and absolute slaughter. Remember how Franklin had to science his way to moral superiority? Well, he learned that this Arthur is actually a dude named David McIntyre, a decorated soldier from the Earth Minbari War, and not just a decorated soldier, but the gunner's mate who executed the order to fire on Dukat's Minbari ship. Yeah, he was on the Prometheus when it made first contact with the Minbari. They have a tradition of approaching ships with their gun ports open as a show of respect. Prometheus took that as a threat, had McIntyre fire, and launched a one-sided war that almost eliminated humanity from the galaxy. Franklin all but physically attacks him with this information until he goes into a catatonic state. Marcus is able to decode the fantasy he was living in. McIntyre was Arthur. Franklin, for some reason, is Bedivere. Excalibur represents his pain that needs to be returned to the Lady of the Lake. But who is that? Who is the lady? Oh, I see. It's Delenn. She comes in, takes Excalibur in a quiet and honestly moving scene, and McIntyre is back on his feet, ready to join the fight. Like, seriously, like that fast. He's headed to the Narn homeworld to help with the resistance. Marcus and Franklin see him off, and once he's on his way, Marcus speculates that Kosh must be Merlin, who aged backwards. So Babylon 5 may have been the inspiration for the Round Table. Sheridan is Archer, Ivanova is Gawain, and, well, you know who would be Morgana. Actually, no, I don't know who. Like, can you clue me in a little bit here? But hey, you know who else doesn't know? Garibaldi. And that's because he's busy breaking and entering the post office to get a package sent to him from Earth. Operating costs have gone up, so it's going to cost him 100 credits to get his anchovies and pepperoni. In the end, he threatens to shut down the post office and evict the postal worker so he can get his postage and his money back. Classy, Garibaldi. Real classy. Brent, what did you think of this episode of Babylon 5?
Not a lot. We finally learned what started the Earth Minbari War.
That was pretty cool.
It was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mistake. And you maybe could have something to talk with about that. Jeff, we did this episode already this season.
Oh, yeah?
This was passing through Gethsemane. You're talking about guilt and what that does to a person's psyche. And I understand this is different. What do you do with the guy who was the actual dude who pushed the bomb out of the hatch that dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? That's the dude we're talking about in this episode, right?
The pilot of Enola Gay flying out of the shockwave on that August day.
Yep. That's the guy we're talking about. So I have no notes. I literally have no notes. There's nothing about this episode that stood out to me that I want to talk about, that I have any desire to talk about. I don't know why we're doing this episode. Now, people out there are going to be like, oh, well, you know, you're talking about this person here and this guilt and this. Look, I'm past this part. Maybe on a rewatch, this is a cool deep dive. This is a cool whatever. I think there's some cool probably Star Trek messages. I'm glad you got Deltas this week. I am so ready to move on to the next episode. And that is pretty much my complete thoughts. People are going to rip into me in the comments. I don't even care because this was objectively an awful episode. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I think really this did one thing. Like this accomplished one thing for us in like the scope of Babylon 5. The big mystery from episode 1 was, what happened? Why did the Earth-Minbari War end? And how did it start? And what did this happen? I feel like we have a pretty, I don't want to say complete picture, but I can tell the story now, of how we started the war with them, why they freaked out and how it ended. So that happened. I think every sci-fi show does this episode though. Like every sci-fi show has to have its fantasy episode. And here's the thing. They're never that good. And this one is no different. Michael York was, he tried. Actually, you know what? I have a little bit of trivia for you.
Okay.
So, Michael Myers, right? The not the killer, but the actor, the comedian, he saw this episode. This is the episode that convinced him to cast Michael York into the role of Basil Exposition in the Austin Power movies.
Is it really?
No, I actually made that up just so I'd have something interesting to say about the episode.
But this episode is just bleh. Like it just like, okay, we already did this episode. I'm so like, oh my God, we just did this episode.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Let's just rip through it because I have a handful of little points on the Arthur stuff here. And I think that one was, and you mentioned it, that like they brought up Sebastian and the comes the Inquisitor thing, right? Like, oh my gosh, the Vorlons could have picked him up. How does Marcus know about that? That was a season 2 thing. I thought that was interesting that Marcus was the one to bring that up.
They talk over lunch or dinner.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I did love, but here's what makes the whole thing.
Pillow talk between him and Ivanova.
Yeah, it could be that. I think the 2 things though that were cool. One was Delenn coming in to take Excalibur. Mm-hmm. It was silent. It was wordless. There was very little music to it, if I remember, even just like a little bit of like mood music. And it was still so powerful. Just her eyes, it was just one of those things of like, we're cool, man. We're cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the shining moment of this episode that was epic, and I will watch as part of the episode again, was Jakar leaping over the railing, going down into that pit and just being like, let's do this.
Dude, look, okay, for a guy who is not actually King Arthur and presumably not actually sword trained, although he might, that dude had some skills.
Totally.
Like he could legitimately fight and do his thing. And Jeff, here's the thing. You just mentioned it. They called it out. Could be another guy from Vorlon that got taken off of Earth, which is what I said last week, right? Mm-hmm. They could have said that. This would have been so much better of an episode if that guy actually was the dude, King Arthur.
Yeah.
And maybe a little less on the Sir Gawain and Lancelot and Galahad and all that sort of stuff, and just be like the King Arthur guy who's come back. Maybe there's all that. Like, this would have been so much better if it was that episode.
It even started out down that, right? Where he's like, when Marcus is like, oh, well, I'll go grab Galahad and Lancelot. And he's like, whoa, they're dead. No. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be great. Like, he knows what's up. You know, he's totally lucid. He understands the time and place he's in. This is going to be, oh, okay. So we're going to rehash the long dark stuff with PTSD for soldiers, which is an important story to tell.
Sure.
It's a story they've told. We've done it. But what it really did, like for me, what it really did was showed me that Franklin, oh my God, not only is he all the things we've talked about so many times, but he's a bully. Now you can sit there, you can make the point, and I know that there are people listening and watching right now who are going to say this of like, but he got him to understand who he was. Like, he fixed him and it's better. You don't fix someone by like verbally beating them up. That was, even for 1996, that was wildly unprofessional of Dr. Franklin. And just the witch hunt that he was after of just like, we're going to get this guy. We're going to tell him who he really is. It's like, God, dude, lay off. Just about 6 months ago, somebody made a comment about me, and in total defense of them, they actually sent an email later apologizing for this, but they were like, Jeff just hates Franklin and he refuses to look at him in an unbiased way. I'm looking at him in an unbiased way, and he's a terrible doctor and he's a terrible person. And this episode just proved it. Sorry. It's who he is. I don't know his arc. I don't know how he develops. Maybe he ends up being Mother Teresa. Well, I guess that's not the best thing, depending on how you look at Mother Teresa, Gandhi, whoever we hold up as being a great person. Maybe he ends up being that person at the end of the series. We're not the end of the series yet. Like right now, Dr. Franklin is the worst.
Right.
All right. Is that enough about Arthur?
The whole thing with G'Kar could have really been something. And as soon as they made it about the bomber dude, instead of let it actually being King Arthur from long ago, saved by the Vorlons, who has been brought back for just a time as this, if it would have been about that, all that G'Kar stuff would have been dope. When they made it about the bomber, it negated everything. Everything. Gone. I'm done.
Yeah, he's left holding the bag. But I'm your Red Knight. And you're just going to, I mean, he's going to go help the Narns. That's cool. But you're still just your citizen G'Kar still.
Yeah. You played along with the dude who's had a psychotic break. And I, in no way, shape, or form, mean any kind of disrespect to anyone who's ever dealt with any kind of mental health issues. None whatsoever.
Question.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the Babylon Treaty and how that went down?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
That should have been a good episode. Trying to get the rest of the universe to acknowledge Babylon 5, to say, hey, we're gonna do a brand new treaty, and we're got to get people to sign on, because to emphasize, like, this is going to be the last best hope for peace. This is still going to be neutral territory. This is still going to be a place where you send your ambassadors. In fact, not only is that, we're going to do it even better than we did before. We're going more hardcore at it, and Earth ain't here to stop us and tell us what to do. Oh, and by the way, we also need you guys to send us some money because we're severely lacking. You know, that would have been a good episode. That would have been very appropriate. How about you? Were you okay with it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, to your point, I wish it was more about, like they just threw out, Babylon 5 will be neutral territory where we can do these things, but then all the emphasis was on, and we need your ships to patrol. Like, we really need like business, and we need people helping out. It was more of a like hands out, we need something, as opposed to we're amazing and we have something to offer you. And I think that if it was given more than the 4.5 minutes that it got in this episode, they could have gone there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a neat idea. I liked the production of it. Like, it was cool to see the council chambers again. I liked that they had the treaties in those folders, you know, all official, and Ivanova passing them through. Like, the whole scene was good. I did notice it looked like Sheridan and Ivanova had like sashes or something on over there, like some sort of a version of like for like a dress uniform sort of thing.
I didn't even notice that at all. I'll look for it in future episodes.
It just made me miss the Earth Force dress uniforms.
Dude, those were such good uniforms.
Yeah.
They were. Do you ever wonder if like Sheridan like just stands in his quarters and just looks into his closet and be like, man, I look so good in that?
He totally like Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bills it. He's just like,
right. Well, you know, he's also sitting there like, dude, I just bought this new dress uniform before I got here. Like, I just got it.
New patches sewn on. This stuff isn't cheap, but he puts it on in the mirror. He plays a little music and he goes, would you salute me? I'd salute me. Sorry, that was a really bad Silence of the Lambs. If you get it, you get it.
Oh.
I can't believe I went.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, let's actually talk substance here.
Hey,
was there any kind of good Star Trek messages you pulled out of this? You got deltas this week.
we do. Let's hit one other plot point before we get to that.
I'm done.
And then
Nope.
we got to talk about the Garibaldi stuff.
I don't care. Cutting it off. Okay, fine. Let's talk about Garibaldi. I like Garibaldi. He's cool.
I thought he was way out of line in this one.
In prior Babylon 5 episodes, there has been a B plot that has been intended to be comedy. It has been intended to play for laughs.
Yeah.
And it was not funny. Looking at you, Acts of Sacrifice, where you tried to force Ivanova to have sex against her will.
Yes.
Not funny. It was meant to be hilarious. Maybe it was really funny back in the 90s. I can't imagine that it was. It's not funny today. This one, a B plot that is being played for laughs and was funny. Garibaldi, I'm not taking any of that, not to crap on your comment. I'm not taking any of it seriously because the post office guy was a cartoon.
He was great. I loved him.
Awesome. Garibaldi trying to break into his deal.
Well, to me, everything was great till he whipped out the PPG and shot the lock. But it made it fine, though, when the postal guy was living in the postal thing. 20 extra credits for that lock.
Right. And when he does the thing at the end where like he gives him the damaged box, he's like, I'm just joking. I'm like, look, yes, in real life, was Garibaldi out of line? Sure. I'm not taking any of that seriously because it was funny.
I loved the scene when they were breaking and entering, and Garibaldi's like, dude, what are y'all worried about? What's the big deal? It's like, dude, this is the post office. We could get in real trouble. But Brent, I think that we have reached that part of the show where we boil this all down. We see if the show has any of those Star Trekky type messages to it, like a deep moral message. Maybe it's holding up a mirror to society, giving us hope that we'll be better in the future. We're going to do that with me rating this episode on a scale of 0 to 5 deltas as to how Star Trekky it was. And I mean, we can go through the exercise of you rating it on a scale of 0 to 5 Starfuries as to how much we liked it and how Babylon 5 it was, but pretty sure we know. I
think we're contractually obligated to go through that exercise.
I think so too. It's in the notes, like we wrote it. So, but I'll start with the deltas. There was a cool scene in this one where they were talking about life being fair or not being fair. Life's so unfair. And Marcus said, I'm glad it's not fair, right? If it were fair, all the bad things that happened to us would be what we deserved. Now, I could write a huge, excellent Star Trek episode, 5 Delta Star Trek episode on that message alone, that premise right there. A society, right, built on this premise that, of course, ultimately uses it for evil. One group decides who does and who doesn't. It'd be one of those things, and they kind of break it down. But it was literally a line that Marcus said that was a cool thinking thing. But it does take us back to a theme that we've talked about a lot, and that is that we can only control, like the only thing we as humans, as people can control is how we react to things, right? A thing happens, we get to choose how we react to it, and that's it. Life's not fair, but our reaction to the unfairness can be fair. And I think that Arthur and McIntyre both are trying to make right what went wrong from a misunderstanding that happened, right? An unfair misunderstanding. Dude going after the Adder, and then the army's coming down and starting the fantasy war that happened, and then McIntyre shooting the Minbari ship, ultimately leading to Dukat dying in the Earth Minbari war. They couldn't stop the things that happened, right? Arthur couldn't have stopped the sword coming down on the snake. McIntyre couldn't have not shot the gunnery batteries at him, but they could try to make up for it, or at least ask and try to make up for it and look for that forgiveness. Which takes us again to the theme of forgiveness, which we are really, really hitting hard in season 3. The attack on the Minbari ship wasn't McIntyre's responsibility, but he blamed himself. And I think this is the thing too we've seen in this season specifically a couple of times. He's not just blaming himself for firing on them, but he's also blaming himself for surviving the Battle of the Line. But it was like 20,000 people were at that, and 200 survived is what we got out of this one. So in his own way, through his expression of his post-traumatic stress, he seeks out forgiveness from Delenn, and he gets it. And to me, the frosting on this one is that he used his skills wherever he got those skills. As Arthur, he immediately used them to help people. There's that scene with the old lady who just wanted her picture of her husband who died. That's all that she wanted. And he went out of his way to make it happen. Like, he naturally helped people, and immediately, as soon as he was like immediately recovered, like that fast from, you know, all that time of being sick, he goes off to help the Narns at great personal risk. I thought that was great. So with all of that said, I feel like this had some strong messages in it. And so I'm going to give it 3 deltas.
Yeah. I remember watching this thing and like, oh yeah, that's the Star Trek message. Yeah, that's there. This, I mean, I don't want to, as much as I'm crapping on this episode, and I'm crapping all over this episode, I don't want to take away the Star Trek messages from it, because it's definitely there. Mm-hmm. I'm just really glad you're the one who has to do it.
Well, and I think, and I kind of said, they're not new messages. There's no new light being shined here. It's just like, hey, here's the thing, again, that we've been telling you. They're great messages. It's great stuff, but we got it. And we generally got it better.
This may go over into the Starfury conversation a bit. Okay. What do we know at this point? Even if you're watching this as it's airing live on television, you know, these stories are all running together. This is a big story that's going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Like you understand that midway through season 3, halfway through the run of the show, which you didn't know that it was going to be the run of the show at the time. Maybe you heard rumblings out there of like, yeah, when he pitched the show to the network, he said he had this is a 5-season show and he's got the whole thing already planned out. Like, you know that. If you didn't know that, you figured it out. You get to this episode and you're like, you've got to be sitting like in the spot that you and I are sitting in right now, Jeff, which is get on with the thing. Like, you had this awesome situation where Babylon 5 broke away and it was like, yeah, let's go. And the last, what has it been, Jeff? 2-3 episodes now in a row have been like, what are we doing? Like, it's just been heavy until you got to this one, which was just bad. I'm sorry. Him coming in and going, hey, I'm going to release my guilt back to the Lady of the Lake, and Excalibur does that. Now I'm good. That's not how that works.
Yeah, not at all.
It was so absurd that, again, I go back to, had he actually been a dude from the Vorlon and come on to facilitate something, to do something, maybe the one who really needed him was Jakar to come and knight him so Jakar can rise up and stand up. Like, maybe it's something. Honestly, how cool would it be for them just to be kind of like a new cast member, like a Brother Theo? We see him 4 or 5 times a season, which, by the way, where's Brother Theo been?
Yeah.
I need that dude back. You know what I mean? But that would have been cool. That's not what we got. Starfury's is this weird mix of how much did we enjoy the episode versus how Babylon 5, how much did it do it in Babylon 5's own way? As you mentioned earlier, Jeff, this is an episode every every sci-fi show does. They do the guilty conscience. They do this thing. Sometimes they do it more than once. You know what episode this reminded me of from Star Trek a lot? Do you remember the episode of the little kid who lost his parents and he was trying to become like Data?
Yes.
With like no emotion. That this one, I mean, obviously clearly different, but a person who's having a complete break and identifying as something else other than what they are.
Yeah.
And having to rediscover themselves. It's a beautiful story. This is not the time to tell this story. This didn't do it in a very Babylon 5 way. This was sloppy. This was poorly written. I don't know what the hell JMS was thinking about with this episode. This one is going to get like, just because the Garibaldi side made me laugh and the Jakar stuff made me like, I enjoyed that part. I'm not going to say that this was completely devoid of enjoyment. There's just not much to really grab onto at this point that is new, that's different. So I'll give it a Starfury.
1 Starfury.
And that might be generous. I was thinking a half, but I'm gonna do half.
Okay.
That's where I am. It's a half a Starfury. That's it.
Half a Starfury is exactly half a Starfury more than I thought you were going to give it.
Me too, to be honest with you. I just talked myself into half a Starfury.
Well, the Garibaldi stuff was fun for sure. And I also think, as you were talking, it made me think of the Geometry of Shadows episode, that when we watched it, we were just kind of like, dude, techno mages are awesome. And then there was just like some other stuff that was kind of like, okay, like whatever. Here we are now, more than a season after that episode. It's like, oh my God, what a rich episode that told us so much.
I've heard so much about that. I need to go back and, well, I'm going to get it on Babylon 5 for the second time.
Yeah.
Like, that is an episode specifically because we got so rolled in the comments over that episode. You don't understand foreshadowing. Okay, maybe they're foreshadowing. Do I remember what people were talking about that episode at this point? No. When I go back and watch this for the second time, I can't. I'm looking forward to that particular episode. I will say this: the Minbari, after this episode, to me, now that we know why the Earth Minbari War started and exactly how it happened, the Minbari are becoming more and more Vulcan every passing episode.
Agreed.
And
yes.
not in a good way.
No, all the Enterprise Vulcan stuff, really, right?
Mm-hmm. With as enlightened and evolved as they would like us to believe. You're going to approach people with open ports, as is your custom. Cool, but you're going to be surprised when people take offense to that and fire on you. Like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
And then launch a jihad.
Yeah. To the point where you're going to just, you killed our guy, so we're going to kill all of you. You did this thing, we're going to kill all of you. Like, that is ridiculous. And Earth, you're weak, you're small, you're brand new to the universe, you're this, but we're going to just obliterate you and wipe you off the universal map.
Yeah.
The Minbari got notched down a peg for me, maybe 2 pegs after this episode.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, with the Geometry of Shadows piece, one, we wanted the Techno Mages back. I still want the Techno Mages back.
Me too.
They gave us a lot of cool stuff. This episode, if Arthur came back, okay, whatever. Well, at this point, knowing what happened to McIntyre, it'd be ridiculous if he came back. But just if we carry through the theory that he was Arthur and he went off to do stuff and he came back, okay, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I don't care. I will get on a soapbox and yell for the Techno Mages to come back. I don't care if Arthur comes back. Also, the other stuff in this episode, maybe it's foreshadowing of some kind. If it is, don't tell us. But I can't see it at all, what it means.
No. Mm-mm.
But right now, we don't have to foreshadow. Right now, we get to call it exactly how it is because we are, just like last season, creating the absolute and definitive, 100% accurate, definitive ranking of this season of Babylon 5. I'm not even going to go through the top 5, Brent. Where do you rank A Late Delivery from Avalon?
You know what I really want to do is I want to make this like we did the Long Dark last season, where I was like, I'm just going to put it at 22, even though we're only at like episode 8, and it's just going to stay all the way down there. I'm not going to do that to this one, but this will go at the end. This will go at the bottom, and I'll gladly watch it get pushed down further and further and further as the season goes. I think you don't disagree with me.
Yeah, if I did, it wouldn't matter. But the only disagreement I would do is I'd say just put it at 22. Just save ourselves the time. But Brent, these are some words I know you've been waiting to hear for almost the better part of a week now. That's it for A Late Delivery from Avalon.
Thank God.
Next week, we're going to be watching The Ship of Tears for the first time. Now, that's the first time Brent has heard that title. All we know are the titles of the next episode. We don't look at pictures. We don't look at synopses, the little thumbnails, or anything like that. And the fun game we love to play is guessing what the episode is going to be about based on the title alone. So, Brent, what do you think Ship of Tears is going to be about?
I don't even want to guess. That title sounds awful. Seriously, we came out of we came out of Severed Dreams, awesomeness, to what have we had these last couple weeks? We've had
Seek Transit Vir.
Okay, that wasn't a bad episode. Not what I expected, but it wasn't a great episode, just not a bad episode. Ceremonies of Light and Dark, which A Late Delivery, like, this feels like it's going to be another heavy. And I don't listen. I feel Brent just wants stuff that's funny. No, that's not it. I just I can do heavy, make it matter. And this does not feel like anything that is going to matter. This feels like yet another something that is a Ship of Tears. Okay, this is a warship. This is the ship that it's the Widowmaker. It's that sort of a ship. It's the one that kills everybody.
The Minbari one, right? That got blown up, but was the Trigati, I think it was called. That back at the beginning of season 2.
Yeah, it's going to be something like that, and they're coming through, and I don't even know what happens. Jeff, I'm not looking forward to this one next week either, man. Oh, I don't think it's going to be good.
I'm going to make a huge prediction.
Don't. Okay.
I think Ivanova is going to die.
No, she's not.
And I think that she is expecting to go to Stovacor, but she's going to end up in Greythor instead. Oh, wait, that's Barge of the... Sorry.
I was like, only if she comes back. Like,
right?
Is she going to come back as like the three-eyed raven in that dream? Where's that dream sequence been? I want that dream sequence back. You know, that Sheridan meeting with the prophets here thing, man.
It's that Acts of... What was that one in? I remember the dream sequence.
I don't know.
I forget which one, but yeah, like
All Alone in the Night. It was
the raven, the crow, and the dove. Okay, so here's my real prediction. I actually wrote this down because I think this is going to be a thing.
See, that's what happens, folks, when you actually are the one who writes the notes and gets to see the thing. You get to think about it way beforehand.
Yeah, so I have a little more prep on mine. This is going to pick up with the Babylon Treaty stuff. And Babylon 5 is trying to re-legitimize itself more with the non-aligned worlds. And so I think that one of the immediate things that's going to happen are refugees are going to start pouring in from the non-aligned world. So we're going to start seeing more of the Pak'mara. We're going to see more Drazi. We're going to see more of these other aliens around in that what we saw from the Narns, you know, when they were fleeing areas. But I think there's going to be one ship, and I think it's going to be a Drazi ship just because we see the Drazi make up quite a bit. But the captain of the ship is going to be an actor that has his SAG card so he can actually talk in the episode. And he's going to have like all these just beat up, you know, women and children and, you know, poets and blah, blah, blah. And he's going to become like the ship of tears, right? Like we have just, this is sad. This is sorrowful. Maybe you don't have enough room. Maybe you can't dock us. And he's going to become like the spokesperson to actually start negotiating for peace. Like, I don't know what other non-aligned worlds they're warring with, but he's gonna be like, let's get in Babylon 5 and let's negotiate a treaty so my people can get taken care of.
Okay. See, that sounds like a heavy episode.
Yeah.
I'm totally down for that episode. Would have no problems with that. But again, you're moving the ball down the field, adding to the story, not just spinning in circles, you know, and that's what I want, Jeff. That's what I want. I want just push the ball down the field. It could be a little, could be a lot, but like,
I will just say this, like, careful what you wish for. When we had those 3 messages from Earth, point of no return, and severed dreams, like those were exciting. Those were fun, but we had episodes over 2 hours long here on YouTube. And, cause there's so much to dive into. I don't know that I want this is week 12. So I don't necessarily know if I want 10 weeks of that. So careful what you wish for.
I will take 10 weeks of that quality of episode though.
It's a lot.
You and I can get better on the length. But I want the show, I want the show to be that good. We've heard so much about how great this show is. To get a crappy episode like this one feels almost like a betrayal, to be honest with you.
Wow. Well, we're going to find out next week if the betrayal ends or if it continues. Thank you all so much for joining us for this epic episode of Babylon 5 for the first time, and an episode of Babylon 5. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening to us. And if you haven't already, please leave us a rating and a review so I can read it right here on the podcast. So Brent, until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah. What's up?
Can you see my little name tag right here in my window?
I can.
What's it say?
Do better. That
is not directed at you. That's directed to 30 years ago in the past at the people at Babylon 5. Do better. They need to do better.
It's my first time.
Is that going to be a giveaway piece?
You what? No, I'm keeping that one. Hey, I know what we're doing for our giveaway. Should we spoil it? Should I tell people?
We're just over halfway through the season. You ready to spoil this one?
Yeah. So do you remember our friend Wash?
Oh, heck yeah. Wash is incredible.
He did the 3D printed Babylon 5 station for us.
Yeah, from the first season. Yeah.
He made 3D printed Starfuries.
Oh,
and sent them to me. We're going to give away Starfuries. He sent me more than one.